I grew up moving around a lot. My father was an entertainer, and in the family there was always this sense that he would find El Dorado somewhere else. And because of that, we traveled constantly. From the age of 9, my first move was to Australia, then back to England, then back to Australia, and later to Israel. And besides that, there was something like 40 moves inside each country. It was a mess. When we traveled between Australia and England, it was done by ship, by large ocean liners. And something happened there that was more than just a physical journey. Everybody was getting seasick, more or less. Except for me. I loved it. I loved the motion of the ship, the way it would go up on a wave and then suddenly drop. And you'd feel this sort of almost anti-gravity moment. There was something about that movement that I was very drawn to. At night on the ship, when I lay down to sleep, I would spontaneously enter what I can only describe as a different reality. These weren't dreams. When this happens night after night, for weeks at a time, you understand that something else is taking place. Every time we traveled by ship, the ocean and the motion would bring me back to that state. That period wasn't one defining moment, the defining period. It set something in motion in my mind, my brain, my psyche. From there came a long search for what lies beyond the physical reality we usually experience through our senses. I've always been very connected to water, very, very deeply. Even when I live far from it today. If I could have stayed underwater for hours, I probably would have. And only now, as I'm talking about this, I suddenly see how much of my glass work connects back to that. The flow, the movement, the sensuous shapes, the tension in the line. It can't be a wishy-washy flow. It has to have a certain tension in it. And yes, I'm very drawn to the greenish-bluish colors as well. I hadn't consciously connected all of this until now. At some point I realized that in order to seek that which is beyond, you can't just float off into abstract spirituality. You have to be very firmly rooted on the ground in order to access those states and remain functional. I often describe it as Jacob's ladder. It's firmly planted on the earth, but reaches into the heavens. Over time, this became for me 3 pillars: art, science, and spirituality. Art as the interface, as the way to create something that actually resonates with people. Science as a way to understand, to investigate, to bring structure and clarity to experiences rather than just talking about feelings. And spiritually, especially spirituality, not as something abstract or preachy, but as an underlying dimension that informs how I think, how I feel, and how I work. I don't usually talk about any of this. It's always there, but it stays under the surface. And yes, humor helps. It keeps me relatively sane. When all of this comes together in my work, What interests me is expressing that dimension beyond the noisy reality that we live in. That's been with me since I was 9 years old, since those nights on the ship, and it's still what drives everything I do today.